We are finally here. Game one of the World Series, as you know, is tonight with the Yankees taking on the Dodgers. And I wanted to preview the series, preview the game. And I called up my old friend, Will Middlebrooks, to join us to do this. Will is the broadcaster for the Boston Red Sox for Nesson. He's also an analyst at CBS. I've been working with him for years. And he's a World Series champion with the Red Sox. I was with the Marlins. Let's talk World Series. What's up, Will?
What's going on? I know you don't have many guests, so it's always an honor. This happens once a year or so. I think, and by the way, we've been together for 6 years now, 6 seasons, which that
Wow.
went by really quick.
That really did. It's almost longer than our careers.
It's about mine, yeah.
So this is it. There's excitement. It's hard for the Red Sox fans. They may do some hate watching, but at the end of the day, this is the matchup that baseball wanted. This is the matchup that the broadcasters wanted, and it's coming. You've got the biggest stars on the biggest stage. You've got the two biggest markets, 5 MVPs. The experts are really mixed. There's a lot of people saying it's going to go 7 games. It's evenly matched. The odds say that the Dodgers are slight favorites. How do you overall, before we break down sort of into detail, how overall do you see this matchup going?
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you start looking at all-time great World Series, and obviously in this era of baseball, we're not going to have the pitching duels that we used to, say in the 75 World Series, the 86 World Series, even the 91 World Series, where Jack Morris starts 3 games, wins a couple of them. That's not this era of baseball, and it's not these two teams, especially the Dodgers, where they're at with what, 7 starting pitchers hurt, 8 if you count Shohei Ohtani. So we're in this era of bullpen. We're in this era of matchup. So in that case, yeah, it is a coin flip of trying to figure out, does this go the distance? Does it go 7 games? Can the bullpen last? Do the matchups actually work with these pockets that they create analytically for the bullpen arms to come in and face these star hitters? Um, in a perfect world, yeah, we get 7 games, and this goes down as one of the top 3 World Series of all time because of the talent on the field. You feel like it has that
What's amazing
ability
to
to
me
to be
is
that.
we haven't seen really any starters do anything meaningful out of the pen. And the last time the Dodgers won it all, Urias was the closer, and he's a starting pitcher. When we won the ring, we needed Josh Beckett, Dontrell Willis. All of them had meaningful bullpen innings, and it's amazing to me as I think about Cole is going to go in game one. There were days when you could go 1-4-7, but those days are gone. My guess is he goes game one and game five. But by doing that, he should be available for a couple of innings in a game seven. And I was wondering whether he could even close a game seven if Weaver and Holmes and Canley just can't even lift their arms anymore.
So I look at that 2 ways. With a guy like Garrett Cole, with the paycheck he gets every 2 weeks, um, I guess this is more of a question toward to you is, do you pay him that money to be that
Or we
guy?
want the ring.
Or is it he's being paid that money, we must protect
Well,
him
let
for the
me be
future of
clear.
the
We want the
contract?
ring. And if we need Cole to get us the ring at the end,
Yes.
we're pitching Cole. And it's not really a Nestor Cortez thing, which is a whole thing we did earlier on Nothing Personal, that he is so great that he'd give up a year of his career and money in free agency just for a ring. And that sort of made me smile. But when it comes to a long-term contract, yes, we would generally protect those guys during the season, but come postseason, all bets are off.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that should be the case, and I think if you do see that, which you hope someone like Garrett Cole turns it on because he's been so up and down since coming back from injury. He's had good starts, but even in the postseason, his we'll say good starts are 4 strikeouts. You're not seeing the 10, 12 strikeout games. Yeah, there's the leash was quick on him. I get that, but in the same breath, he's your ace,
How big a
and
deal is
somebody's
it
got to
in
do it.
our minds that, there's no more spider tack? And say what you want, Will, and I don't know if you wanna create a headline here, but, I'll create it. He doesn't get to use the sticky stuff that he used to get to use, and it impacts,
No.
it really does, the spin of the ball, everything, the plane of the ball. His stuff used to play, 101 to 103 because of all the stuff that he would do with the ball. Now when he's sitting 96, 98, it's sort of ordinary because everybody's throwing that now.
100%. And you look at a guy like Luke Weaver who does still create that type of spin, the 25 to 2600 RPMs on a fastball, and you see what that can do with 96 and 97 with all the swing and miss. Yeah, he's got a good changeup. I get that. That's part of it. But when you're able to spin a fastball like that where it looks like it's middle and you just can't get on top of it, it's really frustrating. You start cheating to that and then all of a sudden the off speed you're really susceptible to. Um you said it. I mean, there's a lot of guys across the league who have that issue with not having that grip anymore. Now, at this point, you'd think they would have adapted, and you've seen starts where Garrett Cole looks like himself. Um, and you start to think you really want to look into that, and this is layered, obviously, but you would think the sweatier games, the hotter the games, the better he would be because the more sweat you create, the more the rosin is activated and the stickier it gets. We've actually seen guys get kicked out of games because of sticky substances. But really, I do think that rosin builds up, and if you don't scrape it off every inning, you're going to raise some eyebrows when it starts to build. I mean, I used to use it as a third baseman, and I was constantly licking my fingers and using it because it would build up and almost cake up and create a lot of stick and grip. And you could see it; my
But
fingers would
you
be
just can't
black
start. So I
after
the
games at
issue though,
times
Will, you
because of it.
can't start at that level of sweat. You can work up a sweat in the pen, but what the umpires are looking for is a level of sticky that is out of the ordinary. And the guys who have gotten banged this season
Right.
are those who it just didn't pass the smell test. Now, there are ways people loved pitching a pro player because you'd have this level of sweat. And Marlins Park, the air conditioning was actually toward the bowl. So it would be super hot on the field. And there were pitchers who actually loved that. But of course, we kept sunscreen in the trainer's room at Marlins Park.
Bullfrog
Isn't
and
that
rosin,
so
baby.
funny?
That was it. That was the perfect outside of any other substance that these guys would come up with, and they would make their own stuff. I mean, you know it. They had their own concoctions that they would share with teammates, and they're almost like scientists in a lab in a back room in the clubhouse making their own cup of
No one ever asked
special
us
stuff,
why we
right?
had
And
a full vat of sunscreen at Marlins Park. It's so silly.
it's a real thing. Sunscreen on, rosin on top. You couldn't even get it
And
off
so
in one
the
shower.
offense, what Conine used to tell me is he didn't always mind the sticky stuff on the players because he actually didn't want to get hit in the head. So how much is it when all these guys are throwing
100%.
98 to 100 now? How much as a hitter you actually are okay with the sticky stuff because you want them to have command?
It's a double-edged sword because in today's era with Rapsodo and TrackMan and all these devices to get the absolute most out of, you can tinker your hand angle to the slightest increment and get more break. And when you can do that plus extra grip, which adds more spin, guys get a lot nastier. So yeah, you don't want to get hit in the ear hole with 100 when you're seeing a lot of pitchers with lack of command and walks are through the roof, and that's part of it. And everyone's chasing velocity. That's just the game we live in. As a hitter, if I have to pick one or the other, I would be totally fine with them having control, use the sticky stuff because it does make a difference. I don't think it makes a
Because you're a father.
game changing. I don't. I don't. And you got me really thinking about it now because we're also in an era now where everyone throws a lot harder. In my opinion, I do. I know there's this whole conspiracy theory group of guys used to throw just as hard because the radar guns used to measure in flight and not out of the hand or whatever it may be. And now that the guns are juiced now, whatever. I think guys throw harder, guys train different. There's programs for this, there's the analytics and metrics and everything behind it. Guys throw harder. Um, so add the sticky stuff in there.
We played
It
with the
gets really
radar
tough,
guns.
especially with
You know you
fastballs
can
more than
play with the
anything.
radar guns? We did that. We would
As
make it
far as like,
so Brad Penny was a radar lover. He would turn around after every pitch to look at how fast he was throwing, and so we would move it up so he would feel better about himself because if it were down, he would
that's
get
fair.
upset and try to throw harder and then lose command, and then his breaking ball wouldn't be as effective. So to him, he was throwing, "Oh my god, Samson, I touched 99 today." I'm like, "Yes, you did, Brad."
Yeah, good job. I mean, 97 is still great, but 99, yeah. I had a spring training with Brad Penny when he was with the Red Sox. I was a young pup. It was like one of my first big league spring trainings, and he was he was going through it at that point in his life. It wasn't probably wasn't the same guy.
He's gone through it, and now he's on the other side. He's a family guy with a World Series ring. Tell me
Yep.
about this World Series. A lot of people are talking about who's got the most pressure, Cashman and Boone versus Andrew Friedman and Dave Roberts. The Dodgers have won a World Series more recently, the COVID World Series in 20, and I've been going back and forth. I think more pressure is always on the Yankees because because they
One
just
million
haven't won
percent.
in so long, and Boone and Cashman, this is an example of a World Series where the loser gets really no solace. Winning the pennant is just not good enough for either of these franchises.
Yeah, I would agree. And as much as I see and read and hear that Dave Roberts' head is on the chopping block, why? I think this is one of his best managerial years he's had, all things considered, with all the injuries that they've withstand. They've had it since. I mean, it's been since spring training up until the end of the regular season, even up through the last series where they lost Alex Vesia and they're trying to get Gratterall back. Like there's still guys they're trying to get back, and he hasn't been at full strength at all this season. So even getting to this point, yes, I understand the payroll, I understand the superstars, I understand the market of LA and what they expect now. I think this was one of the better managerial seasons for Dave Roberts. But to your point, New York Yankees, it's a World Series or bust every season, and they haven't been there since 2009, and that's a major disappointment. Luckily for them, the Astros lost early, so they didn't have to face them because they've been their daddy for the
I was
last few
thinking
years.
about bullpens because I will go on nothing personal and I talk about pitching, speed, defense. And the best bullpen was the Guardians, and they did not get past the Yankees. And Clase was a Cy Young candidate who couldn't really be, who lost. He just ran out of gas. And I'm looking at who is going to be in the World Series. And I'm thinking about Trinan. I'm thinking about Weaver and Holmes. And I'm looking at Evan Phillips. And I'm saying, who's going to be the star? And so I'm going to put you on the spot twice. One, pick a
Oh,
bullpen
jeez.
arm from both teams, one bullpen arm from each team who is going to get that signature out that we're going to look back and say that was a difference maker in the series.
Well, if you start talking signature out, you're thinking like end of the game or like a big,
Can be the sixth inning these days.
multiple
The
inning
way think
close.
about what the Mets did.
That's what I was that was the point I was gonna get to was I automatically jumped to Luke Weaver and the role he's been thrown into because of the issues that they've had with Clay Holmes. But Clay Holmes has been really good in the middle of games. They've been putting him in the fifth, sixth, seventh innings. His last two outings weren't good, but up until that point, he had six outings, I believe, scoreless, flawless, great in that spot. So I'm gonna say Clay Holmes comes up really big. Gosh, David, you really now the wheels are spinning because now I'm thinking about Canely as well because of his split and how good he is against lefties. And is he going to be in the spot against Shohei with the bases loaded where you have to pitch to him and you have to get that out? Do you use Nestor Cortez there, or do you go to a guy who a changeup's coming but you
You know,
still can't hit it?
Canley's an
It
interesting case.
there's so many variables there. I'm gonna stick with my original answer of Clay Holmes getting a lot of big outs in the sixth and seventh inning
Okay,
with the
what about
top of the
LA?
lineup up. Oh, okay. So I need to see if Alex Vesia is going to be on the roster. All right. He's got an intercostal issue. I don't know if that's oblique. I don't know if it's whatever. They're going to pump him with Toradol, legal or not, and he's going to probably be on the roster. But if he's in there, I think that as good as he is against left-handed batters and right-handed batters, he's not a reverse split guy. He is 144 against lefties, 150 against righties. So if he's able to come in and face Soto, Judge, Stanton in a big spot and get those guys out, he's my guy. If not, I'm going to go Michael Kopech. I'm going to go a guy you traded for. A guy who triple digits. He's not your closer. He's not Blake Trinan, who's probably going to be there at second half of the eighth inning, ninth inning guy. He has been that guy the whole postseason. I'm going to go Michael Kopech. A guy to come in, throw
He
hard,
also
and,
could be
and
the
get some
guy who
big outs.
starts game 4. for the Dodgers, and so the Dodgers have to think
Exactly.
about
I don't
that.
I don't know if they're gonna do he didn't have success doing that, but
They
who
could
else
go
do
to
they go to,
Knack,
right?
they could go to
Is it Ryan
Brazier,
Brazier, you know?
and so it's gonna be interesting. It's not shocking given the way today's game is that there's gonna be a bullpen start in the World Series. We've seen it for multiple years in a row, and looking at the rotation, it's not must-see TV to watch Cole, Rodon, and Clark Schmidt, and then
Right.
Luis Heel and Yamamoto is must-see for, Japan, but in terms of the US, you look at Flaherty as a game 1 pitcher, a trade deadline acquisition from a playoff team, and the biggest storyline is the stars are really in the lineups. There are no true, you could say maybe Cole, but not really. There's no like Rivera. This is a World Series between two markets where every time there's someone at the plate up and down these lineups, it could be a game changing at bat. And that's something we haven't had in a while. So it's now time. Who you going with? Actually, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna say who I'm picking first because I did it on yesterday's show, but just so you have the information, I went with the Yankees in 7, but my boldest prediction, as outlined last night on a preview show on CBS, was I do not believe there will be a 2-game streak of any kind in this World Series. I think they will alternate starting tonight with the Yankees and going all the way 7 straight games of 1-game win streaks. Yankees prevail 4-3.
So you're saying the Dodgers beat
Yes,
Carlos
I am.
Rodon then?
The Yankees don't beat Yamamoto.
That's nice. Okay. So, David, one of the reasons we're so good on shows together is because we normally have completely different opinions. But you're dead on what I'm thinking here. Yankees in 7. I 100% think it's a back and forth battle. Heavyweight, just who gets the big hit last, right? And this brings me to the point too, which I want to harp on this, and it's probably going to make me sound like boomer, old school baseball guy. Um, as much as we will focus on the big names and who makes the big plays in the big moments, um, the team that does the small things here will win this series. It's not going to be the big homer that we focus on. It's going to be the things that get them to that point. So in games like this, we forget about the fundamentals sometimes, and we just focus on who hits the big homer because they had this bullpen arm in. He throws 100. We can't string together 2 or 3 hits. He's not walking guys. But if you look at these games, it is who takes the extra base, right? Who hits the cutoff to keep the double play in
Who
order?
doesn't make outs on
Who
the bases?
goes first to third on a ball they shouldn't? Yes, which the Yankees did a couple times against Cleveland. You look at Jazz getting picked off at second base in a big spot. Like, what are you doing? Those things can't happen. And normally, these guys are professionals and the best in the game, so you don't really recognize how good they are at fundamental baseball because it only stands out when they make a bonehead play. But the team that makes the least mistakes, I know that sounds very elementary, but the team that does the small things right and doesn't let the moment get too big for them and is able to focus on baseball at its
Well,
bones will win this series.
we're
And
both
I
gonna
am
be
going with
right
the
or we're
Yankees
both
in
gonna be
7 here.
wrong, but we're gonna do it together. Folks, this is Will
We're gonna do it
Middlebrooks.
together, baby.
Watch him in the media, watch him as a broadcaster for the Red Sox, watch him on CBS Sports HQ, watch him with his own show. Just pay attention to Will, and you will learn plenty. Thank you, Will.